Today I want to talk about what is, in my opinion, the most elusive bracket. Bracket 1. What makes Bracket 1 so elusive? How do the other brackets compare? What does a Bracket 1 deck look like? Hopefully all these questions and more can be answered by the end of this video. Now first of all, I want to touch on what exactly makes Bracket 1 elusive. I think a large contributing factor is the amount of tools we have access to that allow us to optimize our decks. Long gone are the days of tossing a bunch of your bulk or standard cards that are no longer legal into a deck and calling it a day. From EDHREC telling us all the best builds to hypergeometric calculators to get land counts just right, and Scryfall being able to pull up an entire swath of cards with similar text to create synergy. With all of this, it's not hard to brew up a very functional deck that will at least play some Magic. The result of this, of course, is making a good Magic deck is pretty easy, which in a lot of ways is good for the game. In fact, it can actually be quite difficult to brew up something less than a Bracket 2, and for most experienced deck builders, the minimum threshold is probably closer to Bracket 3. But I'm throwing out all these brackets, and for those who don't know, I'll drop a very quick bracket crash course. This is the graphic I like to use. No shade to the original, but this one takes a lot of information from the bracket article and adds it into the graphic, so there's a little bit less confusion. Now starting with bracket 2, it's some pretty casual vibes, with some incremental advantages that build into a win. Along with that, there are some bracket restrictions listed here. I like the vibe description as well as the idea of few tutors, because few can mean different things to different people, which gets people talking about their decks, which is, pretty much the whole point of the bracket system. I don't want to harp on that point too much more because I'm not reviewing brackets as a whole, so I'll leave it here. Just know I appreciate that sentiment throughout all of the brackets. Bracket 3 is next, and this is where most decks in my experience will fall into. These decks are put together with purpose. The card choices are not accidents. Plenty of synergy can be expected out of this bracket, and games can also win suddenly and without warning come the late game, which most people agree is around turn 7. There's still a few restrictions listed here. Feel free to pause and read over them, but I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Brackets 4 and 5 are similar in the fact that they have no restrictions other than the ban list. However, Bracket 5, or CEDH, separates itself by being developed around a meta. I'm not going to get really into what that means in this video. I will just say I fervently agree that the two deserve to be separate. That being said, if you want me to go more in depth on that topic, or if you disagree with that take, let me know in the comments below, and while you're down there, why don't you go ahead and subscribe? It doesn't cost you anything, and you can unsubscribe at any time if you change your mind. Alright now, I've saved the best for last, or maybe best isn't quite the right word for it, but at least the topic of this video for last. Bracket 1 is where, in my humble opinion, decks get really wacky. Cards you see in these brackets will often be very undersupported, or perhaps the theme of the deck has little to do with mechanics at all. It might have to do with specific artists or characters or other themes. The two archetypal Bracket 1 decks that kind of float around on the internet as a meme are women looking left and people sitting in chairs. As a result of supporting these niche themes, a lot of the card quality suffers, and maybe they can formulate into a win sometimes, but that's not really the goal of these decks. Now, after hearing that description, you might think to yourself, well, Bracket 1 is easy. Just hop onto Scryfall Tagger, pick some art tag or artist tag, and just throw a bunch of cards in a deck. And sure, that might leave you with a Bracket 1 deck, but in my opinion, it doesn't necessarily leave you with Bracket 1 intent. You see, the brackets are all about intent. What do you want your deck to do, and what other decks would be okay facing it? If you decide to just pick an underrepresented mechanic and throw in some good cards to support said theme, at the very least you'll probably end up with a Bracket 2 deck. So how do you achieve a Bracket 1 deck? And what does a Bracket 1 deck even really look like? Well, I'm glad you asked. Or I asked. Or whatever, because this video is secretly a deck tech in a trench coat, because I want to yep about my Bracket 1 deck featuring Kanios and Tiro going on a fishing date. I will of course have a link to the full list in the description if you want to follow along, and that's right down there next to the subscribe button, which you should hit by the way. Now this deck all started when a friend of mine pulled a fishing rod in a pack, and after reading over it a couple of times to make sure we had read it correctly, we both realized, wow, this is so bad. I mean, you spend 4 mana to cast and equip and tap itself and a creature it's attached to make one measly 1/1 fish? Eventually? That's hilarious. I want to go fishing. So I immediately went to Scryfall and started looking up fishing art tags, fish art tags, beach art tags, boat art tags, lake art tags, and anything else I could think of. I took everything I found and threw it in a deck. Then I took a look around, first at 5 color commanders, and none of them quite spoke to me. Then I realized I did not have a whole lot of black or red in the list, so I looked at some band commanders, and again, nothing really jumped out as quite perfect at this point. So I looked at some Sans Red or Witchmaw commanders, and Atraxa was right there, proliferating the bait counters on the rod, with Vigilance allowing me to still attack with her, but I really didn't want to build the, at the time, most popular commander for my Bracket 1 deck. At this point, I was kind of thinking of Kyodai so I could make my fishing rod indestructible, which is a funny concept. But I thought I would take one quick look at Sans Black or Ink Treader commanders. And that's when I saw them. Kanios and Tiro of Meletis. Immediately, this wasn't just about going fishing, this was about going on a fishing date. And so I went back to the drawing board. I added some food and removed a few black cards. I cut down to 99 and my baby was born. Now, if you've had the chance to glance at the list, I would like to point out that this deck is 100% proxy. Most of the list isn't that expensive, but the land base goes a little crazy. What can I say? Even though it's Bracket 1, I wanted my 4-color deck to function. But my opinions on proxies could be a whole nother video, so I'll just give it a thumbs up for now and we'll tackle it later. Now for the nitty-gritty of the list. I have 12 cards that can search my deck for Fishing Rod, or my Pole Finders, and most of them can grab alternate cards, in case I've already gotten the rod, but nothing crazy. I would like to point out Kellen the Fayblooded, as he briefly got considered to be the commander, since I could just tutor the rod from the command zone. But I just couldn't bring myself to miss out on blue for all the amazing fish. I have 6 recursion pieces that can pull the rod out of the graveyard, and 3 more pieces of recursion that can pull it out of exile, or my Pole Repair team. If you don't know, Pull from Eternity and Rift Sweeper are some amazing cards to save your hidden commander from exile. I have 7 snacks, which all have the food type, because what date would be complete without a little bit of a snack, if not a whole meal? I'll point out Heaped Harvest from this lot, since it ramps on the way in and on the way out. Honestly, it's a pretty good card, and I'm surprised it's not ran in more decks, but then again, 5 mana for 2 lands is not the best rate in green, but if you have alternate ways to sacrifice an artifact, the rate gets a bit cheaper. Just saying. Then I have 4 boats, all of which are vehicles. Some of them draw, some of them ramp, and one of them is just a beater. But either way, it will get Kanios and Tiro out on the water. I'll point out the Indomitable here, as it's basically a Bident of Thassa effect, but on something that could potentially be swinging. And in a pirate or vehicle deck, it won't stay gone long. Next up, I'll point out my lure section. This just has 2 cards in it, Unstoppable Plan and Masterwork of Ingenuity. I'm a little on the fence about Unstoppable Plan, but mostly it's just so I can fish a little bit more. Masterwork of Ingenuity can obviously become a copy of my fishing rod, and that's why it's here, so I can fish a little more. Can you tell I like fishing a little more? I also have 2 cards in my deck that could eventually win the game, being Halo Fountain and Mechanized Production. You already know that Mechanized Production is going on that fishing rod, so I can have more fishing rod, and therefore more fish. And the Halo Fountain, if you've caught enough fish, can just win the game on the spot. These wins are not fast and are pretty telegraphed, and both kind of thematic to the deck in getting several rods or fishing up several fish, and so I like them here. My second to last category, called my Fisher Buddies, which either features some fishing art or some other people who create fish tokens, or help the date in other ways, like Peregrine Took, who provides snacks, and Guardians of Meletis, which is a thematic and beautiful card in any Kanios and Tiro list. But I really want to point out Octomancer, since it's just one of my favorite cards and it makes some octopi. Lastly, I have my Fishing Bucket. This is everything from fish to krakens to jellyfish, and everything in between. I'll point out Plagon Lord of the Beach here, since he can effectively turn my commander into an 8/8, presenting just one more way I could potentially win the game. Though, not very quickly, because I really don't have any evasion. And that pretty much sums up the list. But even more so than the cards within it is the fun I have playing it. While going through my turns, I will often describe how in preparation for their fishing date some carrot cake was acquired, or I'll talk about how renting a boat is imperative to fishing on the lake as I cast Raider's Carve, and so on. That's where the magic of Bracket 1 is found. And it's not about winning, it's about showing off this wonderful creation to some friends, and hopefully they're showing off similarly silly and fun stuff. Bracket 1, if nothing else, is just a mindset and some silly cards. But that's about all I have to say about that. Hopefully this video gives you a better idea of what a Bracket 1 deck looks like. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and let me know your favorite part down in the comments below. And while you're down there, you might as well subscribe. The button's right there and it doesn't cost you a thing. Oh, and don't forget, have a good one.